Thank you for joining us today for security awareness training on File Sync and Share. Do you know where your data is? The mission of all our workshops is to help you get more from the technology you have and also introduce you to the new technologies you need to know about. And really what we're focusing a lot on in this series is security, because that's what you need to protect your business, and also there are many industry regulations such as the Mass Data Security Law, HIPAA, that have specific guidelines in place. So to kind of frame the discussion today, there's a lot of changes in IT. If you look at 10 years ago compared to now, 70% of employees use mobile devices for work, 63% of employees access data outside the network perimeter, 1 in 5 use cloud apps to share corporate data, and 20% of those employees that use the cloud apps do it without IT's permission or even IT's knowledge. So that's what we want to make folks aware of. And just in the diagram here, it's the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot going on your network, and that's the phrase shadow IT. This is about what's going on in your network that you may not know about. So bring your own device has completely changed the workforce. 82% of businesses allow their employees to bring their own devices to work. 90% of workers in the US use their smartphones for work. By 2017, only 50% of firms will provide technology to employees. Now that's sort of a out there kind of prediction by Gartner, but things are changing really fast. The other thing is that we have a very much changing relationship with data. So it used to be work was a place you go to and your work was at work. Nowadays, 73% of employees are dealing with remote customers in a typical day. 68% are dealing with remote coworkers. Telecommuting is huge. People are working from home, different locations, different offices. You can work anywhere, anytime. That's changed everything. And also working with suppliers, your vendors. You may be transferring large amounts of data to your suppliers as well. So data is no longer a thing that's just in your office. So in order to enable anywhere, anytime access to data, file sync and share comes into play. And file sync and share, that's synchronization and sharing. It's basically how you collaborate with data outside of the four walls of your office. So workers are mobile, folks have multiple devices, and people want anywhere, anytime access to data. Also, collaboration is huge. So, in this diagram, this basically just shows, maybe one worker might have a smartphone, a laptop, a desktop PC, and by basically synchronizing your files in different locations, and the big consumer application out there is Dropbox, but you can get access to your stuff wherever you are. You don't have to be at your office. You don't have to remote into your office anymore. You don't even need to rely on a VPN to get access to your files. You may also have a coworker who perhaps you're collaborating on a project. You need to share files back and forth. One person's making an update, the next person's doing the edits, and also sharing information with your customers. So Sync and Share is basically a technology that's in place to allow you to do this. The issue is, if a business doesn't provide a standard platform, users are going to take things into their own hands and come up with their own solutions. And that's where this whole notion of shadow IT comes into play. Because if you haven't thought through a strategy, there might be things on your network that you're not even aware of. And in many cases, these can pose a large security risk or also a compliance risk to your business. So there's lots of options available out there in the consumer space, Dropbox, Google Docs, OneDrive, iCloud. You're probably already familiar with this concept of sync and share. So why do employees then in a workplace choose, for example, the free version of Dropbox? I mean, it's a great solution for parents sharing photos, from a school sporting event, for example, but really, if you're thinking about your vital corporate information, you really have a problem if your stuff is not under your control. So, but people choose these applications because they're easy to use. They're free. It's what they use at home. They probably shared files with somebody along the way. It's like, oh, this is cool. Now I got a Dropbox account. And they really don't know any better. So they don't know that they're introducing a security risk to your network. And that's where the problem comes into play. They're trying to be diligent employees and do work from multiple locations. But what they don't know is the security risk that comes with that. All right, so here's a snapshot report. If you're on managed service with us through OpenDNS, we can run various reports. For privacy reasons, we don't typically run these reports unless we're asked or we get your approval to do so. But here's an example of a network. You can see a lot of things going on. One is right at the top of the list, Facebook. Folks are on Facebook a lot. AOL, reading personal email. But you see right up here, number 3 is Dropbox. So with thousands of requests recorded in this time period. So, in terms of, what applications you allow, if you haven't thought through a policy or put the safeguards in place, there are going to be things on your network that you may not even know about. And how would you feel if your vital information was either lost or stolen? This is something that every business owner needs to think through and develop a specific plan for. And just these reports are real quick to run, so if you want to get one run and see what's going on in your organization, just let us know anytime. So the risks are that consumer class products lack security. So all the safeguards they have in place, and with security compliance requirements, many documents are restricted, that protected information is only to be accessed by people who need access to that information to perform their job. But when people go in and just put in whatever they want for convenience, they want to be more efficient, they want to get more work done. Those are all good things, but you got to weigh that against the security risk. So consumer class products really lack the security required. Makes it easy to share information, and that's great. Makes it hard to secure the information. So you risk potential loss of data, compliance violations. There's no audit trail. So if something happens, you won't even know what happened. There's no record of who logged in and modified this, that, or the other thing. So all the safeguards that you have in place, within your network, they probably built up over many years to protect your data and your computing environment, are just sort of out the window when this comes into place. Many applications are blacklisted by corporations. Dropbox is one of the most frequently blacklisted application that there is, and it's not that it's not a good tool for what it does, but it's a risk in many situations. And so the question is, what are small and medium businesses doing? So that's where ICARA comes into play, and we're just kind of going through, trying to educate you on what might be going on in your network and what you can do about it. So big question mark is, who has the data? Where is the data? So a company owns the network and the data, but in this day and age, you may not actually know where your data is. And that brings up a lot of different risks. So there's legal exposure. If you've signed agreements with your vendors, with your clients, or HIPAA, mass data security law, if you're not controlling that information, you could be subject to legal exposure. There's loss, theft of data, loss of accountability, and we're going to go through these kind of one by one. And our goal is that you can come up with a plan that works for your business. There's also no support for the free applications. You don't just call up Google and say, hey, Google, I need help. You don't get a human. All right, under legal exposure, and we give Dropbox as an example, but this is just true of any free application. Basically, users have carte blanche power to permanently delete and share files. So you have no way of stopping your employees. Once this is on your network, they can go share everything. You might have all the protection in place within, say, on your server. You have this person can access this, but once they share it out, then anything can happen. A lot of compliance policies requires that files be held for a specific duration. But if people can just sort of move stuff, delete stuff, you introduce a pretty big problem. Loss or theft of data. If administrators can't manage and monitor activities, file sync and share up activities within the organization, you risk losing critical data. So for example, with the use of personal devices, let's say a laptop or phone is lost or stolen and wow, this whole directory was shared to it with all these critical documents. You have no way of doing a remote wipe. You might not even know, you don't even know that the data is stored on that device. So pretty big security loophole. Loss of accountability. Again, if folks are using free versions, and we're not picking on Dropbox, but any of the free ones, you don't have detailed reports that say, who accessed what file, when, what's the change sequence, etc. So in a business grade system, you want to have managers able to get a comprehensive audit of what's going on. That's a very big difference. So what's sort of free and convenient becomes a problem when you kind of think through all these requirements for protecting your data. Loss of file access. Dropbox doesn't track which users or machine touch the file at any time. So if you're trying to figure out what happened, if your data is lost, maybe you're involved in some sort of investigation or whatever, you have to produce information for whatever reason, or just any work that you need to get done. It could be gone and you won't know why, you won't know what happened. Pretty big problem. Another thing that we see as a major risk, a lot of times it's one employee who sets this up. What if they leave the company and you don't even have the credentials to access what they set up in the first place? So this is a pretty big risk. They also may have information, depending on what the terms of separation are, they may have information that you don't want them leaving with. So again, a really big problem if stuff is leaving your network and you don't know it and you have no control of it and you have no credentials to even know what was going on, it introduces a huge problem. So that's something we want all owners and managers to be aware of and to think through. Finally, on the lack of support, the free applications just don't provide support. So the things that you normally need from companies, say like Ikaru, we try to support everything our customers have in place, but there are situations where you just can't get that support from these free consumer class situations. So if we get called into an issue, even we can't help get through. So something to think through. So next steps, what we'd like folks to do is really take a look at what's already happening on your network. So maybe just run a report of the applications that are running on your network and find out which ones you approve, which ones don't you approve of. It is possible to block access if you want that. Some people choose to hire it to manage this just by management protocols. For example, if people get their work done, okay, fine, they can go on Facebook. Dropbox is okay, but we've trained users of what they can use, what they can share, and what they can't share. You may think through different ways of dealing with this. The other thing we ask is, what are your true file collaboration needs? Do you need like everything in a directory to be shared out? Do you want certain work performed under more controlled situations? Think through really who needs access to what and when, because sometimes folks will just sort of set this up, well, I might need this, so I'm just going to share out everything to everybody because maybe one day we need this. Meanwhile, you have a really big problem on your hands. And the third thing is you have to implement a business class solution. So Dropbox has a business version of it's $15 a user a month. We work primarily with Anchor, and now we support everything, but we work with Anchor, just similar pricing, but also an exciting new thing that's being rolled out from our disaster recovery partner, Datto, is a much lower cost version of that. But either you got to make it really restricted or you got to use a business class solution. And the things that we're looking for, what the differences are a lot of them will offer file access and syncing across devices. It has to basically do file sync and share to be functional. If you already have a server in place, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. cloud enablement of existing protections is a really big deal. So that way, if you've already thought through which departments get access to what, you can cloud enable that without having to reinvent all the security. So you have like two parallel security protocols. Team shares, user-based access, you got to have an audit control. You need to be able to know what's happening, kind of like, there's server logs, you can tell who logged in. You want an audit trail for your sync and share as well. Got to have encryption in transit and at rest. Two-factor authentication is, you may or not, it should be capable of that. You may or may not implement that. Strong passwords, always a must. You want to have the capability of doing remote wipes so that if somebody does lose a laptop, you can wipe off the information. All portable devices that have protected information are required by law in Massachusetts to be encrypted. So that's Mass Data Security Law. HIPAA regulations as well require that. So you got to always keep that in mind. Custom retention periods, etc. But number one thing is you really want to get management control of security. Another thing that we advise all clients to put into place is an acceptable use policy. And what this is a document that outlines the constraints and practices a user must agree to before accessing a network. And this eliminates a lot of the, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, I didn't, I was just trying to work harder. I'm putting in extra hours at night. I didn't know that putting Dropbox in was going to cause a problem. Or we've seen situations where people bring laptops in from home and infect an entire network, shut down a company with a virus. This just gets everybody on the same page. It could literally be one page, by the way. It doesn't have to be a book, but just a couple of bullet points that outline what the expectations are when you're on a network. You may choose to allow social media access through the day and just handle it. If people do their jobs, that's fine. We've had clients that say, you know what, okay, it's fine if folks can go on, check their personal mail. We're okay with that, but we're going to block all access to job search sites, because if we're paying somebody, we're not going to be paying them a salary so they can look for a different job. So you can think through all these different settings, and you have very granular control over what you can block on your network if you want to, or if you simply want to handle it all through management protocols, and allow people, during lunch or whatever. Other things you might want to take into considerations if you allow personal devices on your main network, or if you want those only on your guest network. So those are the kind of things. It could be one page long, but this eliminates the I don't know. I didn't know that was a rule. I didn't know I was causing trouble. So industry regulations in your acceptable use policy, Mass Data Security Law, everybody is bound by that, but HIPAA, depending on your industry, HIPAA, PCI, SEC, general security requirements, strong passwords, screen lockouts, roles-based access to protected information. Again, that really comes into play. Again, why you need a business class sync and share. And the whole bring your own device, BYOD, that's something to think through. And the file sync and share comes into play there. Yes, it's great that employees can work anywhere, anytime, but if they're putting in a solution that puts your whole company at risk, the net result is there is no benefit. Our disaster recovery partner, Datto, is rolling out a really great offer for, through their MSP partners like Ikaru. So you get actually a full year free trial. So if you want to check that out, just email us. It's actually going to be free for a year for the first 1 million customers. That's worldwide. So if you have an interest, you may as well get your license reserved for that. So just give us a call or send us an email. If you're using something already and just want us to check it out for security, let us know too. But keep in mind, the more you know, the more secure your network is going to be. And with that, we're hitting 20 minutes. I know folks need to get back to work. We have a lot of different ways that we update you on our blog. We're on Twitter, Facebook. We record these sessions on YouTube, so please check that out. In fact, if you have a team meeting and you see something that resonates, maybe once a month, play one of the videos at a team meeting, or we're also happy, if you're one of our existing clients, we'll come out to your site and do training with you as well. And also, send us your questions and call us anytime you have questions. With that, I'm going to wrap up and thank everybody for joining us today.